Hey guys, back with another video. Today we'll be doing what if Deku had venom? Yeah, venom. Originally I was gonna make a video today, but I have nothing to do, so that video is coming up today. Next video will be, let me try to schedule. Next video will be what if Aaron if Aaron was the Winter Soldier? So get ready for that. So let's start with this what if. Now we started with what if at Inko. Inko is a independent woman. She was in a relationship with Hazashi, but Hazashi left, and no, she's a single mom. Fuck, a single mother, and Hizashi left. Well, Deku did get to know Hizashi, and Hizashi just didn't want anything to do with Deku. To be honest, he just didn't want anything to do with Deku, and he just left. But does he know that's kind of not his son? But okay. Well, Deku he was devastated for a while, and he was blaming himself, but he just got over it at some point and just lived his life. Now we skip to when Deku was 5. When Deku was 5, he went to the quirk doctor. In this original canon, he does have a quirk, and the quirk is called symbiote. And yeah, the quirk doctor says it wasn't really that strong, and they don't know anything really about it, but it doesn't sound strong, or it doesn't really. It morely comes from his mother's side of the quirk, because he can control something in his body and attract it out of his body, which comes from her quirk. So yeah. So Deku goes back home, and he's kind of depressed, and he goes on his computer, and he watches videos. He watches how to hack, to code, to do a lot of stuff. He just starts studying in general. He stopped going to school, and just like he just told the teacher to send him work that he's supposed to do, and he just does the work that he was supposed to do and just send it back to the school, and he doesn't really have to go to school. He's homeschooled technically. So he starts coding, and he gets really into it. Really gets into coding in general, and he applies for a job, for coding, hacking, finding out information, and he gets the job, and it pays really well. It pays a lot of money, and Itko doesn't slack on that money shit either. After the few years that her and Hazashi had divorced, she became head of her hospital, and she controls everything in that hospital. So she's doing well, and Hizashi's like family, his side of the family, and Inko's side of the family kind of abandoned him, like kind of, but they don't really talk to him. None of his sisters or his brothers, or even his fucking father or his mother, talk to them really. So yeah, so stuff is coming up back in his ass. Anyways, so everything's going good for like the Midoriya family basically, and Deku's like a grandmother gave him a necklace that had on her ring that she got, and this is where she died. And he took the necklace, and he always carries around with him. His grandmother was really special to him. His grandfather is still alive though. And he has a few uncles, but you'll see those uncles later in the series. So Deku just gets up and starts coding, and then the military calls him up and say, like, you talented, and we would like you to come and work for us. And Deku doesn't have to leave home; he can just do it in his fucking room. And the military sends him a computer, an untraceable computer, because one of those things, and he starts working for the military, also working for the other company. After a few years, he builds up a lot of money, and this is the time where he's going to middle school. And this is where he decides that he wants to be independent, and he wants to pay his own bills and do all this. But he's not like he doesn't want to be with Inko. He just says that he wants to be independent and prove that he can be on his own. And Inko doesn't really have a problem with this, because Deku's always been kind of independent on himself, and he's always been taking responsibility for himself. And this mostly came for the last words that his mother told him, with great power comes great responsibility, and Deku took that to heart, and he just sighed. And Inko trusts her son and believes in her son, and he always took what happened to his father and his mother on himself. He might not admit it, but he does blame himself for that. So put what should I put down in the comments? Just put not your fault, Deku in the comments. Just do that. And Deku goes independent. He's working up his bank account. Like, bro, this man is a billionaire at this point. He's a billionaire. So his mother's a billionaire too. Like they making that bank, to be honest. And Deku, it has a job, and he just goes. Him and Inko has been looking for houses that's close to UA, because yeah, Deku's still planning to go to UA. He so they've been looking for houses, and they come across a house. It's a pretty nice house. It's not too big and it's not too small. So Deku likes it, and they end up buying it. Well, he ends up buying it because he's being independent. The contractor comes over, talks about it a little bit. Deku gives him his credit card. He pays for the house. He signs the contract, so the house is his now. He gets the keys for the house, and he just starts like packing stuff up. And he decides he's gonna go back to school, but he's not gonna go to the same school he does. So he's not going to school with Bakugo. He's going to school with Todoroki, Momo, Suyu, and Jiro. Yeah, let's say Suyu and Jiro go to Momo's school and Todoroki's school. Yeah, those things. So Deku starts moving out, and his mother has a very great bond. Like, it's really, really, really good. Like, it's Deku has never lied to Inko in his life. Let's put it bluntly. He never lied to Inko. He always stayed truthful when it came to Inko. He never lied. If Inko wanted to know something, even if he was trying to keep it a secret, he would end up telling her, because that's his mother, and he loves his mother to death. So he's never lied to her, and she knows that he's never lied to her in his life, and he doesn't plan to lie to her anytime soon. So she trusts Deku in anything he does, and Deku just with that gang, he's done. So then he decides to. He never really tested out his quirk before. He always knew what it was and could always feel his quirk inside of him. Because if he wanted it to like swoosh around in his arm, he could make it swoosh around his arm. He never really tried to use it though. So Deku's packing, and he wonders if he could use his quirk for this. And then he tries to push out his quirk, since he hasn't used it since he was fucking 5. Well, he never really used it at all. So he was trying really hard to do it, because again, he never really uses it. And then this black goop starts coming out from his body and wrapping around his face, his arms, his head, and he had to close his eyes, because he doesn't want it to go in his eyes. So when he opens his eyes and looks in the mirror, he sees this. Deku's symbiote, or venom suit, is this. That it wraps around Deku, and he has a black a red spider insignia on his chest, big and bold, with red eyes, with red mask eyes things, with claws. Is not noticeable, but is claws. As you can see in the picture, if you look really closely, there's claws. So Deku wonders what he could do with this, and he just gets his instinct to jump. And this was because a ball fell off and was rolling towards him, and he sensed it, and he didn't know what it was. And this could have been dangerous, since if he stepped back, he would have fallen on the floor and hit his head. So he just instantly jumped up and landed on the roof, and he stuck to it. And Deku just wondered, what the fuck? And he was just wondered it, right? And then he just out of reflex, he kind of put his hand in the rock, in the rock and roll sign, and a web sprouted out from his suit, and grabbed the ball and pulled it towards him, and he caught it. And he's like, okay, and he just jumps down, and he's gonna do this later, and he realizes he has increased strength because he's able to move, like lift up his bed with one finger, which he never was ever even think of doing before. So he's pretty surprised. So he packs up for a while, and he's just there chilling. He's in a living room. His mother is sitting down next to him, just reminiscing on when Deku was a kid. Like her baby boy is growing up real fast. So she's just reminiscing on how Deku was as a kid. He was so hyperactive and all of this, and he's mellowed down to a point where he's always calm and like almost emotionless. And she's the only person that ever seen Deku like not have a stone cold face most of the time. And she knows the exact reason for this because he thinks he's responsible for his for her and Hiyashi's breakup. And Deku's not seen his father since that point, and he's never really gotten over it. He's gone past it. He's charging towards the future, but it would always be in the back of his mind, no matter what. Even if he doesn't see himself as the person that did it in anymore, he will still keep that at its back of his mind. Because again, that is his father. There's no way of denying it or saying that he's not. That is his father. So he's just sleeping there, and his phone rings. And apparently, people in anime don't have cases because cases don't exist because everybody does not have a case. Because apparently, cases are outlawed in Japan because y'all just be going out here with no case on your phone, and if it drops, it's done. And I don't understand it. So let me mellow down. So he goes and he picks up his phone and he's just looking across. He doesn't really have friends because since he's homeschooled, so he doesn't really have friends. So he doesn't have anyone to talk to. He just starts looking on social media and stuff, and he thinks of something. We'll try that later. And he just goes off and he goes into his bed again. There's boxes all over his room because again he's moving out. So yeah, he he just laying down on his bed scrolling, and he takes out spiders for a bit and just sees because his abilities are way like a spider's, and yeah, he even had a spider insignia on his chest. So he's thinking like he has the power of a spider, and bioorganic liquid in his body makes him stronger and giving him this power. So he's just like scrolling down, and he comes across spiders. One spider could charge electricity in its body. It couldn't put electricity out of his body, but it could let electricity in its body. And when it bit someone, it would transfer the electricity in their body into someone else's body. And it was more commonly known as electric bite. The other had the legs of the spider had could desecrate poison, and it could either be lethal, or it could just be stunning, or it could just it could just make you not see light. So if this poison was to hit you, you see the light from the sun or light from anywhere. You could only see people, but you couldn't see light. So it's gonna be a weird feeling. And you have to be really close to the person to see people, but you couldn't really see them. And there was another spider. It could camouflage into the wilderness. It was odd, but it could do so. And he just searched up. Then he saw something. A spider. It's a spider from a long, long, long time ago. It's extinct at this point. It could absorb things into its body and could alter its body to fit that particular thing it ate. But it could only had a storage to do two things. So it wasn't really that well known. So like you thinks that he could have some of these powers. He doesn't think he has all, but he thinks he has some of them. So he goes to sleep and he wakes up, puts on some clothes, eats some breakfast with his mother. His mother says, "Today's the day you're moving out, right?" And she's kind of sad, but Deku tells her that he's gonna visit every Sunday and he's gonna visit her. It doesn't. I love you too much to not visit you, mom. And she kind of smiles and she's kind of just heartwarmed that her son is he for some children they couldn't say that with a straight face, especially me. I just can't go up to my mother and say, "Oh, I love you," and all that. I would try to dodge around the question. I would just like, "Hey, yeah, that." I just couldn't straightly go up to her and say, "I love you, mom." I just can't. So it's something built into my body, especially boys. They don't show emotion like that. So yeah, so Deku's always he can show affection for his mother no matter what. So he gathered his box and they put in Inko's car, which is a BMW, a black BMW, just to be specific. I find it. Hold on, guys. It's a video. I'm recording something, so it's making a video. My hobby, the YouTube channel. Is it still easy? But it wasn't considered a hobby. A hobby is something that you enjoy all the time. Certain work I do. I think you did. He was all. I saw. Next. I'm gonna come with you, Mario. But yeah, I think. What? Alright. Bye. Sorry, guys. So yeah. So basically, like you. So yeah. So they put the boxes in the car and they drive to the house and they pull up to the neighborhood. To be blunt, Jiro's house is like a a block down the road, and Suyu's house is like three houses away from him. So Suyu is the closest to him, and then um Momo's house is 5 blocks down the road. So like yeah, and Todoroki's house is like far from them because Todoroki, I don't know, Todoroki's Todoroki, bro. And they pull up and they park in like the parking lot, and they see this house. It's not too fancy. Well, it is fancy, bro. It's not a mansion like their house is, but it's good enough. Well, damn, it's how can I say this? It's a really good house that they like. They like they didn't well Inko doesn't really like the house that she lives in. Not like she doesn't like it. It's just like it's a little out there. Like it's big, so it's a mansion. So like yeah. So Deku goes in. So he just goes in. She and him unpacks the boxes, and They're just reminiscing on the old times they had, and Inko comes across a book. The book was pictures of Deku as a baby, some with Hiyashi in the book, and she just takes out these pictures. She doesn't want Deku to see them and just like shove them in her bag. And Deku didn't really notice it because he was upstairs at the time. She just like pushed it in her bag and just left it there. To be honest, she Inko doesn't want Hiyashi to do anything with Deku. Like to her, Hiyashi changed Deku for the worst, as in Hizashi made Deku cold and very isolated from people in general, and not really trusting a lot of people. So she blames Hazashi for all of that. So yeah, and and Inko Deku gets most of his traits from Inko, the brown hair and the green eyes. But yes, Inko still has green hair, but there's strands of brown in her hair that makes up Deku's brown hair. Instead of him have strands of green hair and brown, it's just straight brown hair. And his eyes come from her, but he has a lighter color of green in her eyes, where she has a dark green in her eyes. So you can tell the similarities between them, cause like the brown hair is not it's from far away, it's not that noticeable, but from close up you can actually just you can see it. So yeah. So Inko's getting ready and she's just putting down some stuff, and Deku goes up to her room, unpacks his stuff, and just and Dek and Deku pulls out a bottle of champagne. No alcohol in the champagne, just champagne, because Deku's about 15 at this point. And well, no, he's actually 13. So like, and don't come at me saying, "Oh, that's bullshit," because then Naruto was alone for his whole life, and he was 13, bro. He was 13. No, he was by himself. I know he didn't have parents, but Haruzen could have been there. So don't call bullshit. That Naruto lived his whole life. Well, like yeah, literally his whole life in an apartment until no, he was like 4 tops when he was in that apartment, and from there to 13. No, the fucking 16. No, 19 actually. Cause in Naruto the Last, he still lived there. So yeah, to 19 years old, this nigga was in that apartment. So you could get your mouth out my business, bitch. I don't care. So you could leave. But yeah, Deku, Deku's 13, and he bowls like a bottle of champagne. That was there. It's like it was just one of those random things that was there. That the landowner just put there. Well, the former landowner, because Deku owns the house now, and he just pops it open and he pours some for his mother, pours some for himself, and they just drink. And this is no alcohol, no alcohol trace. There's no alcohol in that champagne, so yeah. So Deku just and so after a while, Inko goes and Deku goes into his room and sleeps. The next day, Deku goes out to shop for some groceries. This is where he sees Suyu, um, Jiro, and well, just Suyu and Jiro to be quite honest. Yeah, just Suyu and Jiro, and they see him come out this house, and they they're interested because well, Suyu the person that saw him come out the house technically, and Jiro well no, Jiro and Suyu are friends. So Jiro was at Suyu's house, and they see this boy come out this house. They didn't hear some stuff last night, which was them moving. So they're like a neighbor, And they go over, introduce themselves, and Deku introduced himself to them, says he's Midoriya, and she's like, I live here now, and all of that. They ask, like, what's his parents' name, and can they meet them too? Because Japan is, like, weird, so, like, people would just, when it's a new neighbor, and America's, I'm not saying they're weird, but it's just something that I don't do. But obviously it's me, so I don't do a lot of shit. Anyways, so Deku just looks at them and he tells them that he lives alone, and they're 13 at this point, so they're like, "You live what?" And Deku's like, "I live alone, and my parents don't live here. Well, yeah, my mother lives like far from here." And he explains that he has a job, but it's it's a basically a hobby for him, and he gets paid to do it. And that hobby just so comes with a lot of money. So he's rich, and he's very responsible for what he does with his money. So they were like, "Oh, God damn, well, okay," and they kept on talking. And Deku's actually trying to make friends. And Deku says that he was gonna go grocery shopping, and it's actually he went for the mail to see if any mail came, which was just the final documents. Where he was just waiting for the final documents of the house to like get here, and he got them, he signed them, and just put them in a safe with a code. It's not really gonna matter in any sort of way, but he just needs to keep them on him. So Deku says he was going to the going to the convenience store, and just going to the supermarket basically, and getting some food and basic essentials. He didn't really buy anything. He only bought like cup ramen, some 10-minute 1 hour of food, all that shit, some chicken and chips, and just all that shit. They understand, and he says like, "You want to come with me?" And Suyu just says, I might call Suyu Froppy sometimes, or I don't even know if I'm saying Suyu's name right, so I'm gonna call her Froppy. Suyu, I think it's still Suyu Froppy. So Suyu, if that's not her name, just know I'm talking about Froppy. And Suyu, I don't know if Suyu has normal feet. I'm gonna say she does. I don't know if she has normal feet. I think she has like those like frog feet. But in this canon, she has normal feet, and the frog feet that she has in her suit are just there because they're there. So Deku goes inside. He puts on a fur coat and a no. He puts on a black leather jacket with a fur hoodie, with a gray fur hoodie, and he puts it on, zips it up, and it's snowing outside. So they have on coats too. Jiro has on a dark purple coat, and Suyu has a dark green cloak. And the reason why Deku um became friends with them, because Jiro has the shyness and like reluctantness of his like mother when certain things are put in front of her. So then Deku did hear her say at Suyu's house. So he brought it up and she became a little shy. So Deku noticed that, and it really reminded him of his mother. And Froppy, on the other hand, just straight up reminded him of his mother fully because of the green hair and the green eyes and all of that stuff. And her bluntness at times. Like, if Deku was straight up being an idiot, she would just say, "Yo, you being an idiot." And yeah, which is not that often because Deku's smart AF. So they go to the convenience store, and Deku buys some stuff, some groceries to put in his fridge, some sodas, some stuff, and they buy some stuff too, and they go back home, and Deku says if you want to exchange numbers, and they kind of blush at this because Deku's hot AF, no homo, and they give him his. Well, he gives them his number, and they give him his. So yeah. So Deku goes inside, places on his phone. Well, he goes in his room. Well, his like no, he goes into his office at home. Basically, he goes on the computer, the army computer, and just starts.
What? So what happened? You run and come to me. What happened to you? So where you go? Anything that you? Excuse me.
I just recording.
What?
What want to win in the basement? Like, why want to come in all? Why want to come in down in the basement all of a sudden? Anyways, sorry guys, I in the basement, right? And my family members know I'm in the basement, so they like wondering why the hell I'm in the basement. Which makes sense because like, why would I just volunteer to be in the basement like that? Like, don't get dark. So they're like, hey, what's the problem? So yeah, that's a funny interaction with my family. It's nothing serious. So Deku Deku's just there coding, hacking, doing what he does best, getting paid for it also. And he sees this like email, and he goes and he clicks the email, and it's a award ceremony that he's invited to. Now Deku's an official worker. Like he's a worker. Like everybody knows he's a worker. Well, everybody's employed with him knows his age, knows what he is, and who he is. Because Enko's actually one of the best medical personnel in the world. She's really good at being a doctor. So a lot of people know this nigga. Like a lot. So Deku, his mom got the invite too, but she can't make it because she has other shit to do. So Deku decides his mom already said that she wasn't going, so it would be disrespectful if none of the two showed up. So he's gonna go, and he tells Suyu and Jiro that he's going, and they're like, I and they're just finding a fascination with Deku. Deku is not a cocky bastard, although he's rich, and they know this nigga's rich because they went on Google because apparently Google is a snitch, low key, and they typed up Izuku Midoriya, and it showed him up and showed who his family was, so they know Deku's rich, but he's not stuck up about it. They don't know his quirk, but they think it's strong, which it actually is strong. So Deku remembers he has to try something, but he went on Google Map. Well, not Google Maps, which is just My Hero Academia equivalent to Google Maps, and he searches up abandoned towns, like towns that were in ruins. So like towns that have skyscrapers and buildings, but no one's in there anymore, and it's kind of unstable. So he's typing at those places, and he sees there's not one too far from here, and he's just like, I bet. And he starts working on something, an AI, and he's gonna call the AI Venom. And he starts tinkering some stuff, and he's basically gonna make Friday from Iron Man. Friday, he's gonna basically create that, but he's gonna name it Venom, and he's just working on it. So he goes into his room. He goes out of his room, go out of his office, gets ready, gets dressed, and he calls in Uber, which is equivalent to Uber, and he gets in the Uber and just goes to the award ceremony. And he realizes, damn, I need to get a license, bro. I can't wait till I fucking 16. And and the award ceremony starts and all this, and he gets called up a few times because for the youngest person to work at this point. Yeah, he's the longest person that has an official job. So yeah, He comes up for the most person making the most income at their age. So he comes out a second time, and then the third time being one of the best people in coding and hacking, which everybody's like surprised at. And that was like known, like this nigga got some clout on his name, like bring the respect. And he just he doesn't even let it go to his head. He's just there, and he sits down and his confidence, his confidence, no, not confident, his confidants, yeah, confidants, Suyu and Udero, earphone jack. Yeah, I was buffering her name, earphone jack. Um, Jiro, that yeah, Suyu and Jiro are watching the TV, clapping and all that shit. And this is where she's a girl his age, and she kind of walks up to him and starts talking to him. This girl had black hair that was put into a ponytail at the end. One was slightly, and her rest one side of her hair was slightly covering her eye. She had a slender frame, but you could see that she was developing in certain areas. This is Momo Yaoyorozu, other Yaoyorozu family, which Deku and her has met before. Not officially, but they have seen each other before. And Deku saw her before, obviously because of his mother. And he saw her before, and they just start talking, and Deku's just like talking to her, and Momo's father sees him talking and kind of smiles at this. But two more people are there that I'm not gonna like say at this point. So after this, Deku goes home and he starts like trying to find a car because yeah, he's 13 at this point, but he will not always be 13. 3 more years and he's fucking ready to drive, and he already knows how to drive at this point. Nigga's a genius, so he knows how to drive at this point. So he's looking at a black BMW with silver rims, nothing too fancy. He has to have a good car, but obviously, but it's nothing too fancy. So Deku is texting Jiro, Suyu, and Momo at this point. He kind of creates a group chat, and they all talk. Like all of them talk. Momo gets introduced with Suyu and Jiro, and they start talking until Deku goes to sleep, and all of them go to sleep. So the next day, Deku gets up and put on some clothes, and well, put on his school uniform, and goes out. He kind of makes a list on his phone that he has to go to the hardware store to pick up some stuff for an experiment he's doing. So he goes there, he has officially created venom, or the venom, the codename venom, or in or his intelligence cycle. It's basically Jarvis, basically. It's basically Jarvis, and he it's at 99% completed, but it just needs one more percent, which will become home which would appear when he comes home. So Deku gets up and he gets up and just goes to school. He puts on clothes, his school uniform, and goes to school. And the teachers introduce him, and he's in a class with Momo, Suyu, and Jiro, and they're just like talking. And Deku, Deku on the first day get all A's, bro. This man gets 100% on every test that not the test, well, work that he was given, and they see that, and the entrance test that he had to do, he aced that shit like a boss. So they know he's smart. So the accused doesn't really have much to worry about, and he just keeps talking to them. And one particular day, boys had Suyu, Juro, and Momo cornered and was kind of harassing them. And Deku just said that, bruh, what the fuck is this? And he kind of fucked the bitch assness out of them and just like kind of beat the fuck out of them. Not even using his quirk. His quirk enhances his body because he needs to use it. He's been training his body because he realized the more he trains his body, the more he can use his quirk. And well, he thought this when he was a kid, so he's always been training his body. And the reason he had struggled first using activating the venom suit was because he never really actually tried to use his quirk before, so it was pretty hard to just use something that you know you had, but you never really used it before. So it's pretty hard to activate at that point. So yeah. So Deku, the day ends, and Deku hops on his skateboard and skateboards towards the the abandoned house. Well, goes to the hardware store. He buys an axe, a sword. He buys an axe, a, a two, a double-edged axe, a double edge or bladed axe, whatever you want to use. Axe, a sword, or blade, whatever, or spike sword thingies. A shield, and a hammer. A, a double-sided hammer, whatever. A double hammer, basically. He picks those up and he buys them. It goes off. No, he buys infrared glasses, infrared glasses, and a bulletproof vest, a heat resistant vest, and a basically a temper resistant vest. And he buys all these things and goes home and just enters his room and he sits down and he activates his venom suit. He activates his venom suit and he places his hands on these items and the venom comes off of his hand, or the symbiote comes off his hand and touches these particular items and absorbs it into his body. So he just like, then he turns his hands into a shield, and then he turns his hands into a spike blade, and he then turns his hands into a hammer, and then he turns his hand into an axe. And he's like astounded because he didn't think it was gonna work. So he goes outside or in the backyard and he tries to do he tries to do other abilities, and he just kind of scratches a tree and like purple mist or purple smoke starts coming from his hand, and like the trees start to like bubble, but obviously nothing's happening because it's not a living organism, but it could see that it has a reaction. So he puts like the smoke in a container and he's gonna analyze it to see what it is, and he eventually realizes it's poison, and he just like, yeah, he tries something, then he shocks the tree, and then with red lightning that comes off of his body, and he's like, oh. Then he just starts to like half of his body starts to like go invisible or camouflage, and he's like, wait, okay, come on, calm down, and then he can just he has infrared vision, so he starts to see like heat and all that shit, and he started seeing infrared. He's like, hold on, and he's just like, he's just out freaking out because all his powers are activating at one time. It would activate it slowly over time because of of how it worked, but he has not used this in about 5 years. So, well, not even 5, but he hasn't used this for a very long time. So it is what it is, and he just start training and just he doesn't learn how to shoot his webster. He just starts watching videos on combat training and flexibility training, which he's also mastering in pretty good pace. And yeah, Echo goes inside and he takes off his symbiote and reverts to his human form and just sits down in his bed. I realize that he's kind of hungry, like way hungrier than he was before. So he just runs out of his went out of his like bed and just barrels down to the kitchen and just starts cooking, and yeah, and that's it. So he just like goes and he gets up, and today is a Saturday, and he takes his skateboard and drives to and goes skates down to the abandoned city. And he just goes there and shoots a web, and it hits a building. He tries swinging off the building. He gets pretty far until he just like drops and fall on the floor or the road, and just he says this is gonna take a while. He tries a few more times. He slammed into like buildings 3 to 4 times already, and just he's in a bad shape. So he's in his venom form. He can't use his powers without his venom form. So he's just swinging across the abandoned city, and he's getting the hang of it. And he sees there's animals around here, so he glides down and he slices. He pulls out. His claws is always there, so he just like uses his claws to scratch. Let's say a overgrown mouse, basically. Cause I hate mice. That not mouse, mice. I hate mice. So he scratches the mice, and it dies. Like it dies. He doesn't know how to control his poison yet. So he just used the killing poison out of the bat. And he knows he can use lesser forms of it, which will affect it less. So he's trying to like narrow it down, and he sliced another one, and it just basically ran into certain stuff. So it just starts running into him and just like doing different things. And then it just paralyzes one of them, and he's just testing out his abilities. He's not mastered web slinging yet, but he's close. So he's just keep trying, and over a few weeks, so his time has passed. So over a few weeks, this has been happening, and this today they're kind of in the middle of the middle school year, the middle school. So Deku goes to his locker, opens a locker, and finds 3 notes. And he opens all 3 of them and sees one's from Jiro, one's from Suyu, and one's from Momo. He reads them and he tells them to come at the back of the school. And he's like, okay. He doesn't know what this is because, again, this man's really antisocial, so he doesn't really contact with people, so he doesn't know what a confession is like. So he goes down there, the back of the school, and they're there, and Deku's just there, and he's just like, hey, I'm here, and they kind of like not bow, but they kind of, you know how like when after you do a musician, they just like bow their head after you like did a play, you just like bow a little bit, and they kind of said, please Deku, may you date me, and they're just blushing all this, and Deku's surprised. You know what that is, and he's just like, I can't, I don't, I can't, what? And he's just confused at this point. He says, but he must have the word and say, I technically can't date you. And they say, no, you can. And we've been talking about it, and we realized that we liked you for a very long time. And this is Momo who's speaking up, and then she kind of cuts out, and then Suyu starts speaking and says that we've liked you for a long time, and ever since we met you, and a few years has passed, like a few years has passed. So Deku's like 16 at this point. So all 3 of them are 16 at this point. So they're talking, and it's kind of the final year of their school. So I'm aging it up a bit, so they're not in UA at this point. So in original canon, they would at 15 they would be at UA, but at 16 they're still in high school. So at and when it comes to the second year of UA, Deku would be 17, and along with the rest of class 1A and the rest of the school. So I just aged them up a little bit. So Bakugo, Kirishima, everybody's 16 at this point. Deku, after talking a little bit, accepts and says that he doesn't really mind, and they've been going on dates. They worked out a schedule prior to this, and says like they would have this person on this day and all that. And Deku just says basically he just wants to like meet their parents, like all 3 of their parents, just so he can get that out of the way. And for personal thing with me, I don't like meeting the parents. I honestly don't, because I don't want people to have expectations of me, bitch. I do YouTube. Why do you have expectations of me? I don't like expectations. Like I straight up don't like them, and I don't want to disappoint people because there was sometimes where I just feel like they're doing something. So I don't want to like make people have expectations of me because I'm really nice at first, but I start to like get really comfortable really quickly and just stop caring at some point. So yeah, so I just so Deku wants to meet his parents, and the first parent he meets was Jiro's parents, and Jiro's parents doesn't have really problem. His father, his Jiro's father, just is like he puts on his tough act because we all know that shit was fake. His tough act and tries to intimidate Deku, but sees that Deku has a stone cold face. He doesn't. His his facial expression didn't change since he came. So he's like he gives up and drops the charade, and he's like he's happy. He's happy for his daughter, and Jiro's kind of embarrassed. And Deku, after the day passes, he goes to like Suyu's parents, where Suyu actually's parents actually recognizes him, and he says that boy from the award ceremony, the youngest person to whatever and whatever. And Deku's like, yeah, and he has no problem with it. He's cool, he's chill. He just doesn't really care, and he says I, and he liked that Deku just straight up told Suyu that he wants to meet their parents because just wants to get it out of the way. He liked that he just wanted to get all of that shit out of the way and just be with it, and he respects that. Now, last one is Momo's parents. Where Momo's parents doesn't really have a problem with Deku. He's good. He has a good shoulder. He has good. He has a good heritage, and he's just good in general. So I had no problem with him, and they all three of them are happily dating. All their parents know that it's a three-way relationship, and everyone knows. And the girls told their parents that they's the person that decided this, and Deku was the person that was opposing it at first, but he gave into it at some point. So they know that Deku wasn't just being a pervert and just like that fact. They understand that he liked three of them, but he couldn't choose between all three, so they just choose for him. Basically, that's what they basically did. So they take that with a grain of salt and just live on their lives. But the one person that's with Deku most of the time is Jiro, because Jiro has no like family relatives, which Suyu does. And although she's the closest to Deku's house, Jiro doesn't have any relatives, or she doesn't really have time with her. She doesn't really spend time with her family all that much. So she's always at Deku's house, which Deku eventually gave them a key to his house, and they all have a key. Momo's there sometimes, but she also has stuff to do. She's not just all the time at his house. But Jiro's at his house most of the time. There's some occurrences where she actually sleeps at Deku's house, and Deku's in his room one day just chilling, and he's just chilling basically. He's talking to Jiro, and Jiro's like sitting down next to him, and Jiro just breaks out in a song out of random, just breaks out in a song, and Deku starts singing with her, and she realized, damn, Deku got a smooth voice, like, god damn, he, Deku can't sing, like, this nigga could sing, he just doesn't sing too much, and he sings along with her, and he kind of sounds a little better than Jiro, but Jiro has a little more experience, so with her vocals, she goated it. There's no way on the planet her power level of singing is over Goku's power level, bro. It's broken. So she's a master singer. So Deku is a beginner, bro. He's a ningen, where she is a god at singer, bro. She's the goddess. So Deku's a ningen, she's the goddess. So let's not talk about that. So she's just there, and it's memorized by Deku's voice because she never knew Deku could sing, and she loves him even more for this because he can sing and they can relate. And Deku also can play instruments like the drums, the bass, and a lot of other stuff. When you're in a relationship with Jiro, you need to know these things. So yeah, Deku knows to do this shit. So he's just talking to her, and she's saying that she never knew that Deku could sing like that. Like, where have you been hiding all my life? And Deku's like, I just do it on the side. It's nothing really serious. And she knows Deku's not lying because he's not one to lie. And Deku says the faded day is here, and Suyu and Momo appear at his house, and Jiro's just wearing a shirt and her undergarments. So she puts on some clothes, and Deku hops in his BMW, bro. Like I told you, they're 16, so Deku can drive. So he in his black BMW with the silver rims, and they get in the car and they drive towards Deku's house. Well, Deku's old house, his mother's house, and he's talked to his mother. He knows his mother's home at this point, so he goes in and he knocks on the door. A maid answers the door, and Deku says hi, and she says hi, and she alerts that Deku's mom that Deku's here, and Deku enters the house, and Momo sees the three girls, and she's like, "Hey, that's probably Deku's friends." And Deku sits her down, and he tells her the truth, like, I I I'm in a relationship with these street girls. He just put it down bluntly, and she's like, okay, and they're surprised, and then she just switches out the character because she was just blunt about it. She just says okay, and just starts adoring these street girls that Deku brought here, and like he was not even existent, and she's just rubbing her face against Jiro's and hugging Suyu, and patting Momo's head, like she they realize how fast she just switched up. So they now get that that Deku's blunt side is mostly from her, because they realize her attitude at first, and then she just switched up, which Deku doesn't switch up like that. So that's her own personal personality. So she's like, okay, and they start talking, and Deku explains how they met and all that, and she's just adoring those two at this point. And she just starts embarrassing Deku, talking about how he was as a kid, how joyful he was, and all that shit. And yeah, they just talking, and I time skip. It's been a few days and all that. Now, this is where we leave out this video, guys. Like, tell me how you liked it. It wasn't this bad to me. So Deku's suit is like this. Deku's house is this. So, guys, if you didn't see properly, but this is the end of the video, guys. Like, tell me if you just want me to scrap, like, what if what if Eren was a Winter Soldier, to make a part 2 of this. So if you want part 2 of this instantly, you can just comment down below you want a part 2 of this instantly, and scrap what if Eren was the Winter Soldier, and make that on Monday, because I have free time on Monday. So yeah, I'm goaded on Monday. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. See you. Kind of want to make this a hour video. Should I go on? No, I just made out my whole intro, outro. No, I go. Okay, so I just want to burn up something. Bakugo, some plot holes I left. I'm just gonna say it. If you don't want to hear stuff, or like, it's basically spoilers for the next part of this. So basically, Bakugo is gonna have one for all, but don't worry, Deku's gonna get one for all. But Bakugo would still have one for all. Like, they would split it 2 ways, and that event is more or less gonna happen in the like UA, where Bakugo got kidnapped, around there. So it's gonna happen around there. So yeah. So Bakugo, yeah. So yeah. Deku's gonna more be like a strategist, and he's gonna have like Spider-Man's. He's gonna make jokes sometimes, but that's only when he has his mask on. It's kind of a side effect of his quirk. If he's in a Venom suit too long, so let's say if he's in a Venom suit for an hour, he would become cold and kind of sadistic. But if he stays in it like for a little bit amount of time, he'll just be funny and jokey and all that. So, which is something that you don't really see from Deku. So it's gonna be a really change to his character, because I want his quirk to have a side effect because I'm making him too OP with no side effects. So there is a side effect of his quirk. So yeah, that's why I end this video off, and I just wanted to get an hour. I'm be honest with you, I just wanted to get an hour.